What's up, everybody? Welcome to the channel. My name is Zachary Smith. This is the first video I'm putting on this page. You guys might be familiar with some of my stuff over at Around the 412, where I put all Pittsburgh sports content along with my co-host Tyler. We got a fantasy football show with my boys Joe and Drew as well. But I created this channel to put out some non-Pittsburgh sports content. I'm such a fan of like the NFL draft, obviously, with what we're gonna be doing here, as well as like the leagues themselves. The NFL, MLB, NHL, even maybe some NBA stuff you might see on here. I might be doing some like vlog style videos with some of my friends, some challenge stuff. So it's going to be like a miscellaneous channel, I think. But first things first, I wanted to jump on here and do a mock draft. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I know, mock drafts are very polarizing, right? Like, some people hate them in general. You're not going to make all there's obviously not 32 teams that have first round picks this year, but you're not going to make everybody happy with their selection. And it's just kind of fun, to see how close you can get. Obviously, we only know 29 of the 31 picks at this point, with this being recorded pre-Super Bowl. So Philadelphia and KC could flip where they are picking here, but everything else is going to be set unless there's some trades prior to draft day. There's going to be movement at some point. I mean, we know that even if it's on draft day itself that it takes to get to that point. That's starting at number 1 with the Chicago Bears. I'm going to share my screen here, and then we will go through this. If you could, please subscribe to the channel. Leave me a like, leave me a comment, maybe what you would like to see happen with this channel. I am open to, again, anything. It's going to be like a miscellaneous channel. I'm just excited to get rolling with this and start putting out more types of different content. So the Chicago Bears at number 1, obvious trade down spot. I won't be doing trades in here. So hard to predict what's going to happen. I think we could see a team like Indy try to move ahead here to get the quarterback secure, whichever one they for sure want to have. I think, the Raiders potentially, even though it sounds like they want to bring in an outside free agent. How desperate is Carolina going to be? There's some teams here that make a ton of sense to try to jump up to number 1. Don't know who it's going to be. I assume somebody will move up, but assuming that that doesn't happen in this case, what we're going to do throughout this entire mock draft in the Bears stick and pick, it's between 2 players for me. It's Will Anderson Jr., Jalen Carter. I think there's a case to be made for both. I think Will Anderson Jr. is the best player in this draft, and he plays the more premium position at the edge. But the thing with Jalen Carter is a defensive tackle that can create the pressure from the inside the way that he can. Is that harder to find? So is that more valuable, even though the edge rusher is a more premium position? When you talk about a guy that can create that presence from inside, it's harder to find. So I think the case is there for both of them. In this case, I am going to go with Will Anderson Jr., who is my number 1 player in the class. So yeah, getting him at number 1, the value certainly lines up. Really like him. I think I'm not going to throw the word generational around or anything like that, but I think he is, an immediate impact starter in the NFL with a ceiling as high, as anybody. So I think this is a great pick for the Chicago Bears, who just need to get better, on both sides of the football. So this is a great way of doing so, and a great start for the Ryan Poles drafting era here. Ton of money as well. So, like maybe they try to make a big splash of free agency at the defensive tackle position where they could certainly use somebody too, like if Javon Hargrave is out there, not re-upped in Philadelphia or something like that. Houston at number 2. This is going to be a quarterback, and that's, starts the conversation of who is QB1. There's going to be teams that shy away from Bryce Young because of his weight. And I absolutely expect there's going to be teams that he might even be like QB3 for, not even QB2. When you have like the big arm of Will Levis, the athleticism of Anthony Richardson is very intriguing too. Obviously, like with CJ Stroud, how high is he going to get because of that performance in the college football playoff against Georgia, maybe saving his best for last? A lot of questions about what he's going to do out of structure. He didn't use his legs a whole lot this year at Ohio State, and I think there were some questions about that. But in that game, he did. And I think that he answered some questions for sure. But was it enough of a sample size for people to have him jump all the way up to QB1? In this case, the Houston Texans, again, you're going to hear me say a lot like they just need to get better. The Texans definitely need to get better on both sides of the football. It's got to start at the quarterback position. Davis Mills was a 3rd-round pick of this regime. But at the same time, he's not the future there. I'm going to give him Bryce Young. I think he's going to answer a lot of these questions leading up to the draft. I have Stroud as my number one quarterback. Maybe a little bit of a spoiler alert there, but I think that the Texans are going to like Bryce Young more, and I think that's a great building block for that franchise. I think he's going to answer a lot of questions there. I think he's a great facilitator of the football and can kind of just like run the point there. He's a great playmaker. Number 3, the Arizona Cardinals. Again, you can definitely talk me into this being a trade out spot for Arizona. They're going to have, new GM in town, new head coach in town. You already have your quarterback, Kyler Murray. So if a team was looking to try to come up to secure CJ Stroud or something like that, could make a ton of sense for Arizona to move out. But again, we're sticking with the stick and pick philosophy for all teams here. Again, like I really like Miles Murphy. He might be my number 3 player in this class. You could definitely talk me into that when you look at like JJ Watt's retirement, some of the edge help that they're going to need. But they got a chance to take the guy that I think is like the second best player in this class. And if they're sticking and picking, that's who it's going to be. They're going Jalen Carter. They need so much. The Arizona Cardinals do. What an underwhelming season there in the desert. I thought they'd be like a fringe playoff team this year. Not even close, not even in the mix. And here they are picking at number 3, which is pretty crazy to think, but very exciting time for the new regime. I think that you can get behind that. If you feel like you already have your quarterback in Kyler Murray, this isn't like worst case scenario to have a high pick here. People don't want to hear that. People don't want to tank. You want to win football games, but new regime, get a really good player here. Indianapolis Colts. There's a lot of smoke here. I mean, it's going to be a quarterback. I think they finally go the draft route. Like instead of trying to go out in free agency or in the trade market and bring in one of these vets that just really hasn't. Phillip Rivers was good for a season, but when you talk about trying to bring in Carson Wentz and whatever that was, and then washed Matt Ryan, they've been throwing some darts that just have not worked out. I think they finally go the draft route here. There's been a lot of smoke that this could be Will Levis. I think with CJ Stroud on the board here, you didn't have to move up for him. He just falls into your lap at 4. I think this is too good to pass up for them, and I think that's a great pick. Again, this is my number 1 quarterback. I know might get some flack on that, the Bryce Young, and I like Bryce Young a lot, but CJ Stroud to me, rocket arm. I think he showed enough playmaking ability outside of the pocket. I wish that he had shown more of that throughout the season. But I think in that final game against Georgia, he did enough to show teams that that's something within his skill set. And I think he's just going to continue to build on that. I think it's more indicative of the player that he is and will continue to grow into. So I really like him. And I think that that's a great pick for Indianapolis and really finally invest in that quarterback position. Number 5 here for Seattle. I love this fit. I've given it to them basically every time that I've done a mock draft here. They go Miles Murphy, edge out of Clemson, who is my number 3 overall player in the class. Just ridiculous blend of power and speed. And I think that toolbox is going to continue to grow. I think that he is a really good player already, but I think super high ceiling. And I think Seattle just needs to get some pass rush help in there. I think they're very fortunate here that Miles Murphy falls to 5 because of 2 teams within the top 5 going quarterback. So I think most, if Will Anderson wasn't here, I think we'd be talking about this guy as the best player or maybe the number 2 player behind Jalen Carter. In any other class, he's probably very high up there too. So number 6, the Detroit Lions is a very interesting spot. Obviously, this isn't their own pick. Maybe a little bit of overexceeding expectations this year from the Detroit Lions, but they're getting there. They're really starting to build something in Detroit. What do they need? You look at the offensive line, you feel like we're pretty set there. They could be the team to me, assuming everything checks out medically, that takes a swing here on Brian Brzee. There's a lot of questions about the health, and he's going to have to answer that in the pre-draft process. But if I look at Detroit, like maybe they do go edge, even though, you have 2 rookies from last year there. One of those guys probably exceeded your expectations. Like you knew what you were getting in Aiden Hutchinson, or felt pretty confident about what you were getting there. But James Houston on the other side with 8 sacks, what a nice surprise that was. And maybe, you still need 3 edge rushers, but I think that he did enough for them to address the interior as opposed to the edge. And that's why they're taking a swing here on Brian Brzee, who, again, will have to answer a ton of questions about medicals prior to the draft in order to make them feel good about that. But assuming he can do so, I think that that's a nice selection for them. The Raiders at 7. This this could be a quarterback. If CJ Stroud were to fall here, definitely could see that happening. I don't think it's going to be Levis or Richardson for them. I think that they address quarterback in free agency or a trade. You know, maybe they're the team that goes out and gets Aaron Rodgers and reunites him with Devontae Adams there in Vegas. It's going to be offensive line for me to help whatever quarterback that's going to be back there. And I think they go Paris Johnson of Ohio State, second Ohio State player taken here in the first 7 picks. Violent hands. And when he gets his hands on you, there's no getting off of him. You know, he is a very hard player to shed a block from. Maybe the best in this class in terms of that. But yeah, I think this is a really good pick for the Raiders. They need help on that offensive line. They have for a long time. They keep trying to, again, throw darts at it. I think this is one that sticks. Really like that pick. The Atlanta Falcons, for the love of God, please get some pass rush in there. I think they would have loved for Myles Murphy to somehow fall this far. I mean, yeah, I don't know what they do at quarterback this year. Maybe we see a full season of Desmond Ridder before they try to, you know, if it doesn't work out with that, they try to get one in 2024. I don't think it's this year where they throw another dart at that position. I'm going to give him Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech. Really good player. I think he offers a nice blend of size and speed for them on the edge, and they just need help there, man. I mean, you look at where they are in terms of sacks over the last few seasons combined. I mean, they are dead last by far in terms of the production they've gotten. So definitely need help there. I mean, I feel like they haven't had a pass rush there since like that standout season from Beasley. Like it honestly feels like that long since they've had anybody other than obviously like Grady Jarrett, really good player in the interior, but off the edge, they haven't had something there in a very long time. So that's where we're going with that one. Carolina Panthers at number 9. Yeah, I mean, I think they do it. This is where I'm going to have Will Levis going. If there's any Will Levis fans out there, please cover your ears. I'm personally not a fan. I get that the arm is so live. Great arm. I think that there are some things maybe that you can build around there, but you are really hoping that he hits that ceiling because the floor is not very safe. It's not high. I just don't get how you can like love Will Levis 100%. He's a top 10 pick, but not like Anthony Richardson, who I think has a bigger arm, better athlete. I think honestly is a little bit safer in terms of the floor that he offers to an NFL offense. It's very interesting to see those two evaluations. So, but there's connections there between Levis and Tepper in Carolina. I could definitely see this being their pick. Number 10 for the Eagles. I said at the beginning of this, I was going to have some stuff that probably was going to surprise some people. You weren't going to see in some other mocks. How many people have Bijan Robinson going top 10? Well, it's going to be me. This is under the assumption you're going to see a lot of assumptions being made in these. This is under the assumption that Miles Sanders isn't back, that he goes somewhere else in free agency. And this is such a luxury pick for a team that can afford to make a luxury pick. Philadelphia, not many needs, very well could be coming off of a Super Bowl at this point. And they can just kind of take the best player like Bijan Robinson. The only reason that he is on the board right now is because of the position he plays. He is a 100% top 5 talent to me in this draft. And if he wasn't a running back, he goes a lot higher. But because of positional value, here he is still sitting here at number 10, falls to the Eagles. He could, if he doesn't go here, he's going to go much later in the first round. You start thinking about teams like maybe Buffalo, who showed that they've not been able to run the ball, and that's been their Achilles heel. You got to be able to run the football in the playoffs. Maybe Dallas, losing Tony Pollard to not only injury, but he's also a free agent. Obviously, Zeke not living up to that contract, they can kind of get out of that. So he could make a ton of sense staying in Texas. Beyond that, I don't know who, would pull the trigger in the first round, but this guy's going to go in the first round. Like somebody is going to do it. He is that good of a player. Why not the Eagles, who have the luxury of this top 10 pick that isn't their own pick? And if they lose Miles Sanders in free agency, I think it makes a ton of sense. And what an offense. What an addition for that already fantastic offense that would be. You get a better player, in my opinion, than Miles Sanders, and you get him on a rookie contract. That is the reason that you take a running back in the first round. All right. Number 11, Tennessee Titans. This is one of the easier ones to me. It's going to be Peter Skoronski. Definitely has the case for being the number 1 offensive lineman in this class. The questions are really going to be about the arm length, similar stuff to like Rashawn Slater when he came out and went to the Chargers. But, such a good player. I think you try him for sure at tackle. If it doesn't work out, he's going to be a really good guard. But I think he can stick at tackle. I think that there's valid concerns there because I get it. But again, we've seen guys in the past be able to eliminate those concerns. And I don't think it's just like something we can strap a label to a player just because and let it ride. Like, let each individual player answer those questions on their own. Peter Skoronski is definitely a guy that I could see doing that. Houston Texans here. I've gone some different directions with this. It's just so tough because they have so many needs. Like, you could talk me into basically anything. They still need help at wide receiver. I don't love this wide receiver class as you are going to see, but I think they're going to be the team that does throw the first dart at wide receiver in this class. Then it comes to which one do they take? I look at what they have in that wide receiver room right now. It doesn't sound like Brandon Cooks is going to be there. Obviously, you have Nico. I really like Nico Collins as a player. What's going on? Obviously, all thoughts are with Mechie dealing with what he's dealing with, but like, is he able to get back to football this year? Who knows? So to me, I think that they would go, if they're going to go receiver, obviously the case would be there to keep Quentin Johnston in Texas. I think that as a player, though, they would prefer to go the route of a Jordan Addison, the route technician, to go along with like the big play downfield ability of Nico Collins. So that's what they're going to do. They're going to take the first receiver, Jordan Addison, out of USC. Really good player, like I just said. Has some drop issues, but he can run every route on the tree. And the best thing about him is his practice speed is his full speed in game. Like, when he runs routes, just out throwing, he plays at that speed 100% of the time. He can run every route, like I said, and he does it 100% speed. So I really like the player. I mentioned the questions that I have about the wide receiver class as a whole. He's not necessarily one of those. To me, he definitely is a first-round pick. This potentially a little high, but again, I just think that you see at least one receiver go in that top like 12. So he's going to be the guy for me. There could be another one when you look at some of the teams coming down the board here, but yeah, Jordan Addison's my first receiver off the board. Number 13 to the Jets. Again, like, this has to be offensive tackle to me. It's Broderick Jones. Such a young player too. I mean, so much to grow into. The Jets need a solution for a lot of the questions they have at tackle. Obviously, Mekhi Becton with his health and, not necessarily great play either. They brought in Dwayne Brown, who's like 50 last year. I mean, they keep trying to plug offensive tackles here. They need to invest in one. Broderick Jones could be the solution there for a very long time, given that he's 21. So I think this is a really good pick for them and something that you can really build upon. 14, the New England Patriots. They're one of those couple teams that I mentioned that also could be going receiver here. They have Jacoby Myers is a free agent, as well as Nelson Aguilar. So to me, when you look at what's going to be, I think Jacoby Myers, they would like to have him back. Nelson Aguilar, I'm not so sure. When I look at that receiving room, I think they would have loved Jordan Addison. I think that would be their number one receiver too. I'm not so sure like a Quentin Johnston fits what they're looking for. You could go down the board a little bit. You got like Jackson Smith-Njigba, who might just be relegated to a slot player at the NFL level, which is fine. I mean, those are super, teams utilize that unless you're the Pittsburgh Steelers quite a bit. I think there's definitely still value to be had there. But we're not going to do that right now. Given the way that the board fell, they're going Joey Porter Jr. They need another cornerback. They need kind of like an alpha in that room. They obviously lost J.C. Jackson last offseason. They got, some decent names within that corner room, but they don't have a true number one. This offers the potential to be that within that room. Green Bay, we're going to have our first tight end go off the board. Michael Mayer here. I don't expect Robert Tonyan to be back, and even if so, I mean, he's not a guy that would prevent me from taking a tight end here. And Michael Mayer, who, to me, you look at the tight end class, I really like Darnell Washington, mainly because of the solid floor that he can provide as a blocker too. I mean, he's like an extra offensive lineman, just a massive human. I think he has a lot to grow into in terms of a pass catcher too. But there's a pretty large drop off for me. I do like Dalton Kincaid. I like some of these other guys like Luke Musgrave going down the board a little bit too. But Michael Mayer is definitely the number one tight end in this class. Green Bay seems like a team that would want to invest in that here early. Could have Jordan Love, his first full season as a starting quarterback in the league, get him that security blanket, Michael Mayer, and let them build that connection. Washington here, notice something too. I've only taken one cornerback so far. The cornerback class to me is fantastic. I think it's the strength of this draft class. I think there's like 6 or 7 that could go in round 1. Not saying that's going to be the case. We'll see how many I end up taking here. But I bring that up because I think Washington definitely could be a team that goes that route too. I'm going to give them my CB1 in this class. Christian Gonzalez, just a freak athletically. I think his testing is going to be off the charts. Wouldn't surprise me to see him go higher than this when it's all said and done with what he does at the combine. Really like the player, and I just think this is a great fit in Washington. It seems like what they covet in cornerbacks as well. They finally invest high in the position as opposed to, you know, those third round picks that they keep trying to throw out there. But yeah, Christian Gonzalez to Washington. My Pittsburgh Steelers here at 17. I've done a couple different directions with this. I will say it's going to be a corner for me. And this is even with Cam Sutton coming back. You know, they didn't get what they had hoped after what the flashes they saw last year from Ahkello Witherspoon. Not sure what the situation is going to be with William Jackson, but again, that's not a guy based off his recent history that's going to prevent me from taking a corner. So I'm going corner here. It's between 2 guys. It's between Cam Smith and Devin Witherspoon. I'm going to lean Devin Witherspoon here. I think that the Steelers are going to fall in love with both of them because they both do what the Steelers want to see from their corners, which is help out in the run game too. I think they're very good in that area. They're very sure tacklers and they're very willing tacklers. They can fly around the football field. They're physical guys. And as corners, you know, they get their hands on you at the line of scrimmage. They're not easy to beat and press. Devin Witherspoon especially is a guy that I think you can move around a little bit more too. Like they could even use him as a safety if they wanted to. Not sure what the future holds for like Terrell Edmonds. So it'll be interesting to see what Devin Witherspoon's exact role is. But with Terrell Austin, with Mike Tomlin, you know how much they covet these defensive backs that offer that versatility. So Devin Witherspoon's going to be my guy here for the Steelers, who I think that they fall in love with in the process. I'm not so sure that he's going to be here. Like Daniel Jeremiah has him going as high as 6 in a mock draft. So I had to go, which is interesting. Like, I know that the sites are going to be different, but Pro Football Network had him as the number 29 player in the class. I mean, that seems a little bit crazy to me personally, but you know, to each their own. But he is definitely my flavor. Devin Witherspoon, I'm a big fan. Definitely one of my top. I mean, he's my number 2 or 3 CB. I like Cam Smith a lot too. He's my number 2 or 3 CB, just behind Christian Gonzalez. But really love all those guys. Again, this cornerback class, fantastic. Speaking of cornerbacks, could one go here to Detroit? I think it's definitely on the table. They got, you know, you look at what they did in the first pick in Brian Brzee at defensive tackle. That opens up so many possibilities for them. I mean, if you click on the team needs here, great tool, by the way, on, you know, Pro Football Network's draft simulator. I don't think they go quarterback here. I think they give Jared Goff another year. They could take Anthony Richardson to sit behind him for a year. You could talk me into something like that because I like the player so much. The interior of that offensive line is really the only, I mean, they're so good up front as a whole. Obviously, they have their tackles. I think they're fine in that area. I think that they've afforded themselves the opportunity to go corner or Brian Branch, who, you know, maybe a slot corner, to be that overhang player. I think he can play high safety. He can do a lot of different things for a defense. I'm gonna wait on him. I'm gonna give him one more pick as a spoiler alert. For Detroit, though, I'm gonna go Cam Smith. Seems like the Dan Campbell guy over Keely Ringo, who is, again, you know, testing wise might turn out to be a freak here with what he does leading up to the NFL draft. But Cam Smith, because of the physical nature of his game, I think, you know, Dan Campbell and company is going to fall in love with him. Seems to fit like a glove in terms of what Detroit has starting to build, like their identity there in Detroit. I think Cam Smith's a really good fit. Number 19, just kind of spoiled that. I'm going Brian Branch. I think, you know, Tampa's going to be losing quite a bit in their secondary, potentially in free agency. That defense is in general. Maybe a new era starting in Tampa Bay. First pick of that, Brian Branch, who does so many things for a defense. I really like that fit too. Seattle at 20. This is also interesting. I mean, they went edge with their first pick that I gave them. I look at the fact, obviously, you have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett there, but you need at least 3 receivers in today's NFL anyway. Tyler Lockett's not getting any younger. For that reason, Jackson Smith-Njigba. I think this is really interesting. Maybe, yeah, he is only going to play in the slot in the NFL. I think that is yet to be seen. I think that some of the stuff he showed on tape says he can play outside. We will see what Seattle does with him if this were to happen. But I like the fit a lot. I think Pete Carroll is going to really like what this guy brings to the offense. Nice security blanket. I think they re-up with Geno Smith for at least a year or two and wait on quarterback. They obviously need to get the future in there at some point. Geno Smith's not necessarily a young guy, but he had a great season last year. Get him another weapon and see if there's somehow even more to unlock there with Geno. The Chargers here, they would have been another spot. Obviously, like receiver would have made a ton of sense for them. Quentin Johnston is there. I think that, probably skill set wise, he's too alike Mike Williams. I think they would have preferred, a Jackson Smith-Njigba or Jordan Addison, where you can go down the board a little bit more. I really like Zay Flowers. Josh Downs is obviously still there. Tayshaun Boutte, Rashee Rice, Jalen Hyatt, speed. But for me, I look at what they're losing potentially on defense in that front seven. They need to get better at stopping the run. They need to get better sideline to sideline. I'm going Trenton Simpson, the first line off-ball linebacker here, off the board, out of Clemson. Really good, really rangy, can go sideline to sideline. He is, to me, the number one linebacker in this class. Really good player. Again, this is one of those things where, like, value-wise, I'm not sure that it, 100% lines up because he's, an off-ball linebacker, and those have been so devalued. But really good player, and the Chargers just need to get better in stopping the run. So this is a way to do so. 22, Ravens. This is going to be, to me, a cornerback when you look at what they're potentially losing, and I'm going Clark Phillips for them. He's obviously being a Steelers fan, I know how the Ravens play. I know what they look for. They're as good at doing this drafting as anybody. They need weapons, but when I look at what's on the board at receiver, I think they can wait on that. There's not a huge gap there in between who they would get now and down the board. They need cornerback help. Clark Phillips plays like a Raven, a little bit undersized, shorter arms, but he is so physical. He's just a football player and a really good one at that. I'm really excited about this pick. If I can get a Vikings fan to give me some feedback on this, I would love it. Anthony Richardson, I'm picking for the Minnesota Vikings. Kirk Cousins, obviously not going to be there for the long haul, very much longer. Get a little bit of a project quarterback in there that Kevin O'Connell can start to build with. And wow, I really like this fit. Obviously, Anthony Richardson isn't a guy that's going to come in and start day one, in my opinion, on whatever team he goes to. Kirk Cousins, you obviously have, in town for the time being, and you can start to develop Anthony Richardson under him, and then Anthony Richardson takes over next year, somewhere down the line, and the Vikings are cooking. 24, Jacksonville. I've gone a lot of different directions with this. I still think they need some corner help, and they're going to go with a guy that is going to potentially test off the charts. Crazy speed, maybe entered last year as what people thought would be the number one cornerback. Didn't have a great season. There's a lot of flaws on tape, but a lot of that stuff can be cleaned up too. I think Keely Ringo could still be a very good football player at the next level. And Jacksonville, who they're starting to build something in Jacksonville. This turnaround has been crazy under Doug Peterson in just 1 year. After seeing that last year, Trevor Lawrence's rookie year was kind of a throwaway with Urban Meyer, the way that they've turned it around there has been awesome. Big fan of what they're doing. So Keely Ringo, get them in town, get that defense better. 25, the New York Giants, they need receiver help. Quentin Johnston's slide finally ends here. It seems to be a pretty solid fit to me. I don't know. Again, there's so many questions about these teams at this point in time. Like Daniel Jones, is he back? Saquon Barkley, is he back? What is this offense even going to look like next year? Maybe Mike Kafka's not even there. He could have opportunities elsewhere. I don't know. We can only assume so much here. Quentin Johnston, they need receiver help. He seems to fit the bill. 26, the Dallas Cowboys. They probably do not love the way that this has fallen for them. They could have used a Quentin Johnston in that room too. If they could go running back with what I mentioned earlier. If for some reason Bijan Robinson were to fall, this could definitely be a spot for him. I'm going to go a little bit down the board here and I'm giving them Drew Sanders. I think Drew Sanders is a guy that kind of fits the mold of what the NFL is trending towards in terms of what you're looking for with their linebackers, that height, speed combination. He covers so much ground. He's one of those taller linebackers. I'm not going to say that he is Tremaine Edmonds, but when you look at his size speed combo, I think he just fits the bill of the linebacker that you were looking for in today's NFL. His ability to get sideline to sideline at that height, he's a matchup nightmare, or a matchup eraser, I guess. Guys on the offense that you would consider a matchup nightmare, he is the solution for. So I think this is a really good pick for Dallas. Maybe not a very common mock, but there's going to be some guys you don't think of as first rounders that go in the first round. And that's one of them for me. Buffalo, again, a team that would have loved for Bijan Robinson to not go as early as he did. They need to find a way to run the football. I know they spent a relatively high pick on James Cook last year. I don't think it stops them from taking Jahmyr Gibbs, who is the clear-cut number 2 running back in this draft class to me. So physical. I think he can kind of do it all. I don't think he's a guy that you need to take off the field. I think he could be a 3-down guy at the next level. There's some questions about that. I am in the Jahmyr Gibbs camp that he can do that. I really like this pick for Buffalo. And yeah, they just need to find a way to run the football. They can get through the regular season relying on just Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, in that passing game. Come playoff time, they're going to have to find a way to run that football. The Cincinnati Bengals at 28. Really good roster. They might be losing both their safeties. So that would be the first area that I think you look at. Antonio Johnson is a really good player. I think, Brian Branch would have been great for them in terms of what he offers. Antonio Johnson's going to be the pick for me, though. I expect one of Jesse Bates or Von Bell to leave in free agency. I think the other one could very well be back, but you're still going to need another body there. Eli Apple is also a free agent. So, they have a lot of pieces of that secondary that could be moving around. Antonio Johnson's going to help out. 29 Denver Broncos here. I'm going BJ Ojulari, who I am actually much higher on than this. I think he's a top 20 player. Just great bend to me. He's fast. He's got a great toolbox, the way that he can get around the edge. And I think that you have a really solid player right now, but he could be a really, really, really solid player down the line. So you're kind of investing in the future here. Denver going to need some pass rush help. Obviously, consecutive seasons now that they've traded away Von Miller, then Bradley Chubb. You got to get some new guys in town. BJ Ojulari is going to help out right now and really could help out down the line. 30 Kansas City Chiefs right now. Obviously, these last 2 picks could flip. What does Kansas City need? Because again, you talk about teams that just seem to find value regardless of where they take guys. Obviously, they got George Karlaftis, but edge still a pretty big need for them. Corny to talk me into. What about receiver, though? I mean, we saw in the game against the Bengals, 3 receivers go down for them, and you look at some guys that could potentially not be there, and Juju Smith-Schuster, as well as Mecole Hardman could also be out of town. Is there a guy on this list, though, that makes sense for them? And I'm going to say yes, but it's not at the top of the board. I'm going down a little bit here. Zay Flowers, who I absolutely love. I love the speed that he brings. I love the speed that he plays at. I think he's a fantastic route runner. I think he can do a lot of different things in an offense. You can kind of use him as an improved version of Mecole Hardman. Get him on some gadget plays early in his career and see what he can grow into. But I just think that Kansas City needs some more receiver help I think that was on display yesterday, for sure. Marquez Valdes-Scantling was the only receiver in that room that was really offering anything during that playoff game. So really like that pick for them. And that brings us to the last pick of round 1, pick 31 with the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, such a luxury spot for them. They do have some free agents, potential retirement of Jason Kelsey. Fletcher Cox is obviously a free agent. Is he going to continue to play? Maybe winning or losing that game answers that question. I don't know. But you look at the team needs for them. What do they need? Linebacker, corner, edge, safety, defensive tackle. I am, again, you go through this and you have some assumptions of what's going to happen. I'm going to say Javon Hargrave isn't back and they go defensive tackle here. Well, it went away. So now I got to press full results here and talk about the pick. Smith-Njigba is going to be interesting. I think that this is about the range where you could see him go. I think he's going to be somewhere within like that back end of round 1, but very early in day 2 potential. I think he goes top 40 for sure. I think this is a really good fit in Philadelphia, though, who again can kind of just take whatever, take the best player. You don't necessarily need to go based off need, but I think that this is going to be a need for them too, and I really like the player himself. So Siaki will round out day 1, being the last pick for the Philadelphia Eagles. If I'm making a prediction, I think that he goes for sure day 1. So I think he's that good of a player. There are some teams that are going to covet what he brings way more than some other teams. You know, like on some teams, a guy like that might only play 30% of the snaps. So why would you take a first-round pick? In Philadelphia, though, I think that that's a guy that's going to play a ton, and the value would certainly line up for. So Siaki in that defensive interior, after taking Jordan Davis last year, Philadelphia is right back in it, and obviously you got to love what they're building with Howie Roseman. So that will do it. Again, be sure to subscribe if you aren't already. Leave me a like, comment what you would like to see going forward in the future. I'm probably going to do another one of these post Super Bowl, and we'll see what's changed at that point. But appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.